Yo, what up, everyone? Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. It's time for another episode of the Needle Drop Podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be talking with the one, the only, of Pentatonix, Mr. Mitch Grassi. Now, if you want to support this podcast, you can do what you're doing already. Watch it on YouTube, comment, like, subscribe, share it. You can also hit up a link down there in the description where if you live in the US, you go on Amazon using that link, anything you buy, we get kickback from it, does not add to your overall price. If you want to hear backlogged episodes of this podcast, you can subscribe to it on iTunes, link down there in the description as well. But if you want up-to-date episodes sent straight to your email inbox, you can subscribe for a small monthly fee over at our support page. That is linked down there too. Okay? All right. I think that's all we need to say here. So enjoy the episode. Hello everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for another episode of the Needle Drop Podcast where we have interviews from content creators from across the web. And on today's show we have singer, performer, YouTuber, 1/5 of the a cappella group, the Pentatonix. I've always wanted to say the name of my guests like this, so, please excuse me, let me do this here. Mitch Grassi. Sorry.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I thought you'd be a good guest to try that out with.
Yeah, you know what? I loved it. It was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll incorporate it more in the future.
Awesome.
So before we get into it, just thank you for being on the show.
Of course. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Moving forward, I'd love to talk about singing, your come up, the growth of the Pentatonix,
Sure.
and after, save the best for last. We can have a little music discussion too.
Oh, my favorite.
And talk about some of that weird, obscure stuff that, some of your fans, some of my fans might not be totally turned on to. I know you're big into Igloo Ghost. We'll get into all that.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Okay. So paint me a picture here. Give me an idea of sort of where your beginnings sit. I know it's been about 4 years since one of the first uploads to the Pentatonix channel.
Yeah.
Now it's sitting at 10 million subscribers.
Right.
Thank you for coming to Slum It on my YouTube channel today, buddy.
Yeah, no problem.
But, I know before that you've been in choir, you've had a passion for singing for a long time. Where exactly did this desire start? Give me an idea where the spark sort of came from.
Sure. Well, for me, I had always been interested in music. It started out when I was about 9 years old and I was in musical theater. So I had always had a passion for performing and being on stage. But there was a time in my life when it was middle school, actually, which is, the worst years of anyone's life. And I became I became very introverted and shy. And then I sort of turned to music and electronic music especially. And I sort of fell in love with that. And I think my path veered a little bit toward music production and songwriting and the more obscure musicians. So I think, I shied away from musical theater-dom and became more of a musician. And I think it just went from there. And then I did choir and I did theater again later on in life. But, it was always about the music.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a time period from middle school to like about high school we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Okay, so getting into music production, you've sort of, not that I'm trying to out you here as a producer or, making bedroom music or anything like that or demanding that you drop something, but, you sort of have your own amateur experience and a sort of desire to sort of put together your own electronic music. I assume that you've done this before?
I do, yeah. It's very preliminary stages. It's very time consuming. It's very tedious and time isn't something I have right now, obviously. And I'm also incredibly ADD. So it would take a lot of just like locking myself in my room and focusing on the DAW and figuring it out. But eventually that's something I want to come around to.
Okay, so talking about these more alternative forms of electronic music that you obviously have a passion for,
Yeah.
but you sort of ended up on this very different road where you're on huge stages, millions of fans, watching your videos where you're sort of doing these a cappella renditions of very popular songs.
Yeah.
Sort of what veered you into that direction.
Well, it was actually Scott who started this whole thing. Kirsty, me, and Scott were friends in high school, and there was a radio competition for a cappella groups to audition and go out and meet the cast of Glee in Los Angeles. It's very glamorous, and we put together that group. And I mean, I wasn't against it necessarily. I wasn't. It's a cappella wasn't something that I had strived, what is that word, to do, but you get my point.
Yeah.
But I was like, what the heck, I mean, it's something to do. I love music, it's another avenue for me, and it all went from there.
And so once a group like the Pentatonix sort of reaches this pinnacle that you're at right now, sort of, and you guys have just released. Would you call it your debut album or your sophomore album? Because I know that your previous record was like a Christmas record.
God, yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, we have a number of EPs out right now, but yeah, I would say this is our debut original album for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So your debut original album over here. Focusing on more original music here, what is it like sort of transitioning from this cover process to this process where, you're forcing yourselves to sort of collaborate as a group and come up with something that just didn't exist before?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a challenge, but it was actually a bit of an adventure. I mean, we got to go into the studio, and every day it was with a different songwriter / producer, and sometimes it was horrible, and sometimes it was amazing. It was kind of like a blind date, actually. And it was really cool to be able to explore different creative avenues, different styles and genres, and kind of figure out what our sound is. And I feel like we're still trying to figure out just what that sound is, but but I think we've made great strides musically.
You guys sort of come together on this this common ground of a cappella music, but talking about how where some of your preferences lie within electronic music. Are there other sort of large preferential divides musically between you and the other members of the group?
I mean, I wouldn't call them divides. There are we definitely all have way different tastes in music, but I think that's what's kind of cool about it, is that we can bring all these different influences, even though it is a cappella, we can bring all these musical nuances into the music and kind of have this weird hybrid genre, that we can write to.
And sort of moving beyond some of the electronic music that I know you like, you're talking about being in choir, being in musical theater. I mean, obviously there has to be sort of a soft spot in your heart for some of that stuff as well. I mean, I'm sure you're into some of the early Disney musicals. I mean, are there other musicals out there that you sort of are a huge fan of?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I was obsessive when I was a kid about musicals. I know every single word to Rent. I love Wicked. I love all the classics. I haven't really been up to date with what's going on now, though, in terms of like newer Broadway musicals, but yeah.
Well, speaking back to that old school that you just brought up there, where do you feel like, and not to sort of talk just about musicals, but just kind of vocal music and pop music today, because it just seems like generally the discussion around vocals and vocal music today, it's almost sort of trashed consistently in comparison with the past, where it seems like singers were more raw. There was raw talent there. There were fantastic performances. There was no auto-tune. There was no studio trickery to hide when you had a bad night or you just weren't singing up to snuff.
Right.
Is that sort of era just romanticized? Was it really better than then? Was it really better than now? Do you think singing today is just not what it used to be in a way?
Oh my God, it's tough to say. I mean, I don't want to shit on anyone.
You don't have to name any names.
Oh no, I would never. I mean, I'm so bitter in that way sometimes when I hear quote unquote singers on the radio, and I can hear that they're dripping in auto-tune and it sounds like a computer is singing. And I'm like, why are they, what makes them so popular? But I have to realize that most everyone in the world isn't there for the voice. It's more the whole package and what the entire song / production sounds like. So I understand that as a business, you don't necessarily need to have an amazing singer / musician to have a successful product. So I can respect it in that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's certainly production, it's songwriting too. It's image as well, and being where you are, especially not just with the Pentatonix being becoming a well-respected group within the music industry, but also just YouTube too, which is a very visual medium. You guys appreciate the visual and the look of a group too. How much focus in your mind is sort of on that when you're creating something? And, does it ever become disheartening sometimes when maybe to the audience, from your perspective, it seems like they're putting too much emphasis on that?
On the visuals?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's tough to say. I think it's pretty important, but what's cool about Pentatonix is that we like to keep, in our videos, we like to keep it simple. We like to basically just show you what's going on, who's singing what part, instead of, being a purely aesthetics-based group.
Sure.
If you know what I mean. I think it's, for us, it is more about the music and our different parts that are so integral into our sound.
Yeah, I mean, sort of talking about, seeing people in the videos, seeing the members of the group in the videos singing, it's just, I don't know, it just strikes me as really interesting how vocals and singing, it's sort of a musical instrument and a musical practice that almost anybody can relate to. So it's almost important for people when listening to music to be able to understand the lyrics or maybe see the singer, because it's like the quickest way to relate or understand to the music on an emotional level.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. And and what's cool about our group is that we're all so incredibly different. So being able to see us and how vastly different we all look from each other is also something that's really cool, because, our fans can pick one of us to latch onto and relate to. And that's also a really big part of our brand, is that we're so diverse.
Another thing that's sort of different about your group, and maybe this is not so much today because there's been a proliferation of YouTube musicians online over the past 4 years since you guys started, but it seems like with how much headway you're making, you guys are doing a lot to sort of break down what was once before sort of a stigma with musicians on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in terms of what? Like, what was the stigma?
In terms of just like a respect within the music industry itself. It seemed like at one point there was just very little crossover between people who had potentially millions and millions of views and listens on YouTube, and they're probably a little more popular than some musicians who might be established in the music industry. But music industry, it seems like they didn't want to sort of reach out that olive branch to people who were sort of doing it themselves, like you guys were independently at one time on YouTube. For
sure, yeah. Well, I think that's a recent development, the YouTube artist. A lot of people are becoming really well known from YouTube, and I think one of the reasons we became so successful is that record labels were seeing us and they were like, wow, they did that completely independently. It's almost an anomaly that they garnered so many. This isn't me bragging, by the way. That they garnered so
brag all you want. This is your bragging pedestal.
Well, thank you. They garnered so many, fans off of YouTube, and so many dedicated fans. I think was the most impressive thing, is that our fan base is just so supportive, and they will literally buy anything or do anything just because they love us so much. And that love is totally reciprocated too. We wouldn't be anywhere without them, and that's just a fact. Being the age that I am, I can't help but compare it back to
a point in time when I was growing up, and it seemed like as legitimately great as a lot of pop music that you and I grew up with was, it seemed like much of it was just manufactured and handed down to us from on high and from the radio stations and from the record labels, and it was just like, well, this is good. We're telling you it's good.
Right.
Whereas now it's just so much more democratized.
Sorry. Yeah, totally. What was the question? I'm sorry.
No, there was no question there.
Oh.
It was just kind of a statement, just looking for you to react to that, basically. The democratization of taste online, as popular as you guys are, nobody can really take that away from you guys, because your fans are passionate, they're legitimate, and they're interested in what you're doing because you're doing it well, not because anybody is telling them to be into it or anybody's forcing it down their throat, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there are so many different types of music that people can latch onto nowadays, and I feel like the spectrum is broadening in terms of what pop music is, and what people actually like. I feel like there's not a specific type of music that people are into now, because there are so many different kinds.
Oh my God, yes. The internet just gives people so much access now to so many different sounds, and it's like, even with people who watch my show, there are people who are into XYZ death metal band I'm reviewing, and then they're asking me to review the new Lady Gaga record or something. Yeah. And, while that world seems really freeing and like almost as if as a community of music fans we can listen to and we can enjoy anything, there's almost like a lack of a safety net there. There's a certain volatility to the internet, because what's hot today may be totally gone and irrelevant tomorrow. Right. Sort of what are the challenges that you and Pentatonix keep in mind when you're thinking, okay, we need to do something new this time around. We need to try something different. Is there always an emphasis to experiment and try to keep up with the times, or do you guys feel like you can sort of stick to what you know and continue to please your fans?
I think it's a balance of both, honestly. I mean, we do love to push the boundaries. We like to think of, we like to come up with things that are sort of gimmicky and attention grabbing. And yeah, we do. There is a part of us that likes to stay current, because we want to grow and progress with the market as well. But we also have a brand that we don't want to totally abandon. So it's not like we're going to all of a sudden have like crazy bass drops and production in the background, because it's not part of who we are. So it definitely is a balance.
So obviously there aren't going to be any crazy bass drops working their way into your songs into the future, but sort of what concessions or what experiments could you see the group making in terms of maybe other sounds or other kinds of instrumentation?
Honestly, what I would love, I think this would be more of a live thing, but I would love to do some vocal looping and live electronic vocal alterations. I think that would be amazing. That's something I've always been into, using the voice as an instrument and sort of manipulating it electronically. I just saw, Holly Herndon?
Yes, yeah.
I just saw her in concert, and that was a big part of her show, is using live vocals and manipulating them into a whole new soundscape. And I just thought that was totally amazing.
If there's one thing I like about her music consistently, it's that, I saw this, I don't know if you've caught this, but there's this great Boiler Room set with her on YouTube. Oh, it's really cool. Some of the stuff she's doing live. And what was so heartbreaking when I saw it is the dislike bar was so extreme on that side.
Oh no.
And it's like, and I know, okay, it doesn't sound like the usual Boiler Room set. I get it, but she's doing some really cool stuff with her vocals.
How interesting.
Oh yeah, the thing is, I mean, some of the weirdest stuff out there, if you expose it to a group of people who just do not expect it, they're just liable to hate it.
That's so weird. I feel like Boiler Room has so many different types of musicians too. That's really weird.
Oh yeah. Well, I will say that her set was a little indulgent. There were large swaths of time where she was just kind of being very indulgent with her vocals. It was pretty cool. But,
I see.
There was nothing to really speak of rhythm or structure or anything going on in the background. It was very much kind of like watching I don't know, the evolution of amoebas into like multi-celled organisms or something for a while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it becomes something, down the road. And then once it gets there, it's like, okay, now we're cooking with gas over here. It took a while, but
I understand.
Yeah. Well, that would be really interesting. It kind of sounds like you're talking about, I don't know, doing a wild live Imogen Heap kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's my favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that mostly due to her music or some of the interesting things that I know that she does live?
For me, it was mostly her vocals that I drew influence from. I a lot of her nuances I have subconsciously copied just because I have listened to her so much over the years. But also what's amazing about her is that she produces her own music and she does do a lot of it live. And she's a multi-instrumentalist and an inventor. It's, I could go on and on.
It's true. It's absolutely true. All right. So give me a little taste and an idea before we talk probably more about some of your favorite music over here, as to what people can expect if they come out and they catch the Pentatonix live. I know that you guys are working on what you said earlier, the production of the show.
Yeah.
You guys are typically a vocal group, but what do you sort of do to sort of step beyond that and bring the audience a little extra when they come out and see you in person?
Sure. Yeah. Well, a lot of it is production. It's going to be a really, really cool show in terms of production, but there's a lot of staging and a lot of movement involved. It is going to be an actual conceptual show instead of just us standing in a line across the stage and singing, which can be very effective. But I feel like since we're kind of moving up in terms of venue size, I think we have to kind of bring it a little bit because we have to match the energy of the room. So yeah, it's definitely a real show.
Okay, so what are we, and if you can spoil it a little bit, what are we talking here in terms of concept? Are we talking visuals? Is there a story here? Is there a theme?
There will be lots of visuals. There's sort of an underlying, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we are in this together, we did this all ourselves sort of theme that kind of runs throughout the show. And a sort of, I guess, family theme as well. But
okay.
But yeah, I won't spoil too much. It's going to be really cool. Actually, today is the first day that I'm going to actually get to see all of the production. So, I don't actually totally know what it's going to look like.
Okay. That sounds sentimental, heartwarming.
Exactly, yes.
Is there a moment like in an Usher set where a fan is brought up onto the stage and you guys sort of grind on them or anything like that? Or?
There may very well be a moment like that. I don't know about grinding necessarily. It might not be part of our brand to do that, but...
That's true. That's true. I wouldn't see it in the brand, but if you guys wanted to just play a little more racy.
And branch out. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Okay. Where can people find out about this tour and just kind of know if you guys are coming to a city near them?
Yeah.
And you said it's starting in April?
It's starting in April, technically, yeah. And then it's going to extend pretty much for the rest of the year, but we're doing Europe and Asia, North America twice.
Okay.
So, yeah. And you can find the dates on ptxofficial.com/tour.
Okay, cool. All right. Let me talk a little bit about music with you. I know that you watch the show for some reason, which is just totally crazy.
I do.
I appreciate that
of
very
course.
Much. So, you're into a lot of alternative electronic music. What's up with this new Igloo Ghost EP? I'm really excited about everything that he's doing, and he has a new album coming out. Are you into any of what these guys over at PC Music are doing too?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've been obsessed with PC music since day one.
It reminds me of just a lot of weird 2000s vocal pop, but just totally whacked out. In a weird way, I never quite appreciated stuff like Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera when it was around and I was younger, but it sort of has made me want to go back and listen to it again.
Yeah.
There's this producer who goes by the name of Clarence Clarity. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not.
He is this weird UK pop music producer who's hugely influenced by like boy bands and R&B. But the music, the production is so glitchy.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna have to
it's
write that
so
down.
weird. Clarence Clarity. The album is No Now. It was one of my favorite records of last year. And I don't know, in a weird way, it just made me think like, yeah, you know, that whole Backstreet Boys thing, it like wasn't that bad, because when I was in high school, I remember I was like an angsty metal kid, and I was just like,
I see that for you.
Yeah, you see that in me.
Yeah,
you see that in me.
absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was an angsty metal kid. I hated everybody. I don't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah,
and
I feel that way sometimes.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
What do you do when you have that feeling? You know, how do you indulge in that?
Oh God, I just listen to aggressive music.
Like who? Who's your go-to? Who's the most aggressive thing that you listen to?
The most aggressive? Oh my God. Well,
when you're feeling badass.
A long time ago, when I was an angsty teen, such as we were talking about, I made a playlist called Empower Me, and I would
holy shit.
Yeah, I think the first track on there was Pluto by Bjork, and that was one of my like angry songs. Which is
that was
so
your angry song?
Yeah. Little gay Mitch like dancing around his room to Pluto by Bjork.
Just getting his aggression out.
Yeah.
Keep going in that playlist. Keep going.
Oh my God. Oh, I don't even remember what it was. I feel like nowadays it's probably like Sophie or like I'm looking at my iTunes right now. Or just like happy hardcore or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so something that's not necessarily like angry, but it's very visceral. It's very physical.
Yeah.
So if you're moving around and there's a hard-hitting beat, it allows you to just vent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got it. So I know that you are into artists like Igloo Ghost, like Sophie. I know you like techno, some house too.
Yeah.
Is there sort of a soft spot for any IDM for you, like Aphex Twin or Awe Tech or anything like that, like super obtuse sort of,
Oh yeah.
It's I don't even know what you would even call it. It's kind of like listening to a computer's heartbeat or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually I don't know if you knew this or not, but I have an Aphex Twin tattoo on my left arm.
Oh, no, I did not know that. Fun fact
about me. So I do love Aphex Twin, and I mean, I am very fascinated by the different multitude of sounds that synthesizers can make. So yeah, I'm totally into IDM. I've been trying to get myself into Outecker for the longest time, and I'm not giving up. It's just all my friends that are producers are like, "We love Outecker. You really need to get into them." And I'm like, I'm trying my best, but it's so visceral and so just off the wall. But I can certainly appreciate it for what it is.
Do you feel like it's hard to sort of connect with the music on a human level, or is that something that's not totally necessary for you sometimes?
A human level in what way?
I guess in rock music or vocal music, it's sort of easy for me personally to sort of see the humanity or the human touch in the music. Whereas when I listen to Awetecker sometimes, it's like I feel almost as if floored that this music even came from a human. You know, it seems almost like 100% computer generated sometimes.
Yeah.
Which could be a challenge in itself. You know, the mind favors melody, the mind favors patterns, and to sort of totally break away from those wants and those desires that the brain naturally prefers when it comes to organized sound can be a real challenge, not only in the creative process, but just to listen to it and try to appreciate it from that angle as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think what I like about music like that is that it doesn't really sound like it was man-made. It sounds kind of like its own entity. I don't know. It's just so interesting to me. Yeah, you're right. I can't believe that people actually make music like that. Like, what is the process? And are there patterns or? It's wild.
Are you into Square Pusher at all? Do you like any Square Pusher?
I do like Square Pusher. I don't know much of Square Pusher's stuff, but I'm definitely into it.
I mean, you know, he definitely came up at the same time Aphex Twin did, and
totally.
If you like drum and bass, if you like jungle, if you like IDM, but with more of like a jazzy twist,
yeah.
he's fantastic. I remember in probably college, I was obsessed with him for a while, and I didn't know too much about electronic music back then. I assumed that he was like this really huge guy and everybody knew about him. But then like later down the road, I was like, oh wow, he's just like not as relevant as I thought he was.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he was pretty big too. I see his name everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think he definitely had more popularity at one time, maybe like in the late 90s, early 2000s, but then he sort of turned to like a little bit of a recluse. Okay. And I think he just kind of keeps to himself.
Sure.
I remember there was this interesting interview Andre 3000 of Outkast did one time where he was like completely just praising everything he did, and he was like, oh, he's so great, he's such an amazing musician, I would love to collaborate with him. And he essentially like responded and was like, no, I'm not into that.
Oh, shit. Oh my God.
Like, you know, and I don't know how much he knew of Andre or, you know, or anything like that, but maybe he sort of knew some of the Outkast hits or something. It was probably around the time Hey Ya was popular, maybe shortly after that. And I think he might have said something like, well, I don't write love songs or something like that, you know. I was like, oh well, you know, okay, whatever. So yeah, he's a little bit of a curmudgeon, but he's amazing at what he does.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so if you were to, you know, have the time, we're sort of I'm not you know, predicting the end of the group or anything like that. I'm not wishing for that. But, you know, if we're in a post-Pentatonix era, or if we're in an era where you do have this time to sort of make the electronic music that you want, where do you sort of see yourself going? You know, so what are some of the first sounds or concepts or ideas that you'd like to make or sort of explore?
Yeah, sure. Definitely something bass heavy and something, I think it would be really interesting to go the Twigs route, actually, where, especially with her latest EP, where her songs are very, I suppose, like a journey, and they have different sections. And I think what I more focus on is the live aspect of my music. So I would always keep that in mind if and when, you know, I produce my own music, because I don't know, I love performing so much, and I think it would be cool just to have those different moments in the show.
Well, that's something that in some ways is sort of overlooked now. You know, it seems like when somebody gets an internet hit, while the song may be good, they didn't have those years of sort of practice and study sort of under their belt before that internet hit comes along out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden they're sort of thrust into the limelight. And then you kind of have like I don't know, like a Lana Del Rey Saturday Night Live debut moment where it's just like a flop on so many levels. Yeah. You know, whereas with you guys, I mean, you guys have sort of been in the I guess the trenches, as it were, sort of practicing your craft for years before you got to where you were. And it's got to feel good to sort of have that solid foundation. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's, if nothing else, not to belittle it at all, but it's an amazing starting point, you know? We could go anywhere from here. You know, and sort of putting that in perspective with, I don't know, the consistent popularity of maybe some TV shows like The Voice, which, you know, I'm not asking you to hate on The Voice or anything like that, but I think it sort of makes sort of becoming a singer easy. Not becoming a singer easy, but it makes it seem like that to the audience, like just about anybody can do it. And sure, you know, anybody can put in the practice and put in the time and put in the effort, but it's much harder than just kind of simply deciding that you want to sing on TV, and then people on TV like your singing, and then you're all of a sudden a career musician. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. No, I mean, with shows like that especially, there's normally no offense, but there's no longevity. I mean, it's sad because these musicians are so hyped up about their potential music career, especially when they win, and then nothing happens, and then we move on to the next season, so. All right. I just want to thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for coming over and having this conversation and talking with me about the group and electronic music and just being a fan of the show. I love you. Of course. Dude. Thanks for having me on. No problem. And there is a rumor that I made up just now that people call you my bitch Mitch. Is that true? More or less, yes, that is true. More or less? Okay. All right, then. Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you for answering that.
Of course. Yeah.
We're going to put links to information where you can find out about the Pentatonix tour, and I'll put some Pentatonix videos down there.
Perfect.
I'll put Mitch's sex tape down there.
Excellent.
And
spread that around, please.
and just I appreciate you being a great guest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.